Hello, everybody. Chuck Holton here. How's it going? Thank you for joining me on the Hot Zone. I am in Jordan tonight, and we are just finishing up our tour of Israel and Jordan. We've had a fantastic trip. We've got a great group of people, and it's been a lot of fun. I want to talk more about that, but I don't have a ton of time, so I want to say I'm going to be talking tonight about the threat Iran is making against not just its enemy Israel, but against all of the neighbors in its region. As a matter of fact, Iran is trying to hold the world hostage, threatening everybody, trying to stop Israel from retaliating for the attack that took place on October 1st. And we were in Amman, Jordan. We watched it happen. It was unbelievable. You can watch that live and see what it looked like. So Iran is scared of what is about to take place. And I would still say that it's all but a certainty that Israel is going to respond against Iran in a kinetic way very soon. Now, if they don't, that will tell us just how much sway the United States has over Israel, because Israel is bound and determined now to respond, and the United States is doing everything it can. The Biden administration is doing everything it can to keep it from responding. So just in the last few days, Netanyahu gave a speech directed at the people of Iran. He's done this a couple times in recent history where he's spoken to the people of the nations that they're at war with. He condemned Iran's leadership for prioritizing the fight against Israel over the welfare of its own people. He said, quote, "Every day you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza," adding that the Iranian government was plunging the region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. He spoke very clearly about the fact that the IDF does not have a problem with the Iranian people, and they would love nothing more than to see the regime come down so that the Persian people can recover their country. And he said, this is the part I like the best. He said, imagine if all the vast money that the regime is wasting on nuclear weapons program, wars in foreign countries, was instead invested in the kids' education, in improving healthcare, in building the nation's infrastructure, in water and sewage and all the other things that the Iranians need. Just imagine what Iran could look like. It almost sounds like he's running for office in Iran, but what he's trying to do is convince the Iranian people that what is about to happen is going to be meant to assist, not harm, even if it hurts. Netanyahu is saying now, quote, "When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace." Many people don't realize that Iran and Israel have not always been enemies. As a matter of fact, up until the Shah of Iran was deposed back in the 1980s, Iran and Israel were allies. And Netanyahu is saying that they can be again. We're also going to be talking about how UNIFIL, the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, has been caught in the crossfire in the last 24 hours in the battles that are taking place inside Lebanon, and in so doing had some of their peacekeepers shot and actually wounded in the fighting. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon has been around since 1978. Their job, it's about 10,000 troops from, I forget how many countries, it's dozens of countries that contribute forces to this. The United States is not one of them because they don't want U.S. forces along that border, but they have forces from Indonesia, Ireland, and China, garden spots like that, who make up UNIFIL. Their mandate is to patrol the area south of the Litani River. It's a 75-mile corridor, 75 miles wide and about 18 miles deep, to patrol that area and make sure that Hezbollah does not move military forces into that area, and that Israel doesn't move military forces into that area. Since 1978, they've been spectacularly failing at that job, doing an absolutely bang-up job of doing nothing and spending lots of money in the process. So they get about $480 million a year, just UNIFIL, just that organization, to do their nothing in the most profanely expensive way possible. About 125 million of that comes directly from the U.S. taxpayer. Well, I say directly through the UN, so that's indirectly. But the U.S. taxpayer funds about $125 million a year of that mission. And they have done exactly bupkis to fulfill their mission and keep Hezbollah out along that border. There have been several times where they have been not just accused, but actually caught assisting Hezbollah rather than stopping them. And it's said that the UNIFIL forces have to clear any patrol that they do with Hezbollah, and then Hezbollah tells them which roads they can travel, which areas they are allowed to look at, and which areas they are not. The UNIFIL bases along the border with Israel make very handy places from which to fire munitions at Israel, because then Israel can't fire back without the fear of hitting UN troops. So you can imagine it's just great. It just keeps getting better. So when Israel decided to go into Lebanon last week and actually start routing these rats out of their holes, Hezbollah, and force them to get back north of the Litani River and decimate their leadership. They found tons of explosives, missiles, munitions, and weapons, and all kinds of fun stuff. Tunnels going across the border into Israel. They found all sorts of things. The headquarters where Hassan Nasrallah was eliminated. Oh yeah, it was under a UN school. One of the 6-story buildings that was taken out by the bunker busters that they dropped 80-something tons of them on top of that area in order to get Hassan Nasrallah. One of the 6-story buildings was a UN school. Why am I not surprised? They're doing a great job. The IDF has been pushing in, starting small and working up, conducting hundreds of air strikes into Lebanon every day, even far north of Beirut, conducting all these airstrikes. And what does UNIFIL do? UNIFIL starts putting out messaging like, this is very bad. They shouldn't be here. We need a ceasefire. They're destroying the local villages. It's a lot like Gaza. Pretty much every building has been militarized by Hezbollah. And Israel has a real habit of destroying the buildings that are a threat to Israel. If they have like a missile array inside their living room, stuff like that, Israel tends to bulldoze buildings like that or cause them to spontaneously combust. And they've been going house to house across the border for more than a week now. What does UNIFIL do? That wrings its hands, lights its hair on fire, runs around in circles, and starts screaming about how Israel is the problem here. Yeah, if only Israel would just pull out and leave them alone, everything would be fine, and Hezbollah could get back to trying to murder as many Israelis as possible. That's what they want, apparently. Obviously, that's a non-starter for Israel. It's no surprise. Israel advised UNIFIL to take a vacation. Go somewhere else for a while we clean things up and do the job you haven't done since the 1970s. Bunch of jackwagons. Anyway, what does UNIFIL do? Oh, no, we can't leave. We have to fulfill our mission. It's our mission to keep you out. But they refuse to leave. And surprise, surprise, when it turns out that Hezbollah is acting from near one of the UNIFIL bases, and the Israelis shoot at those bad people, then some UNIFIL troops get wounded. This is what Hezbollah has been waiting for. And probably UNIFIL, for that matter. Because now they get, oh, the Israelis they're wounding our brave UN soldiers. Anybody with 3 brain cells can see the UNIFIL sees its mission as protecting Hezbollah. Probably a 3rd grader could see this. This is your tax dollars at work if you live in the Western world. I've been a war correspondent for more than 20 years and I've never seen a UN peacekeeping force that kept the peace. They're toothless and they're worse than worthless because they actually end up exacerbating the problem that they're meant to address. It's not just UNRWA, it's not just UNIFIL, it's not just UNDOF in Syria, not just MINUSTA in Haiti. It's like every place I've ever been where there's a UN peacekeeping force, that force makes it worse. I remember going to Congo, interviewing women who banded together and took over an abandoned farm with a high wall all around it, and then hired private security to protect them from the UN peacekeepers who kept raping them. They come from countries, these UN peacekeepers, if they're coming from Sierra Leone, yeah, let's get some peacekeepers in here from Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone doesn't know what peace looks like. Worse than worthless. That is the most charitable thing that I can say about the United Nations. The UN, as it turns out, stands for unhelpful. Everything they do, it's like they've created these entities specifically to just hate on Israel, to just try to destroy Israel. That's what it's all about for them. This is the end-all and be-all of their existence. And Iran is saying, if Israel attacks us, if Israel retaliates for our for the largest ballistic missile attack in history, if Israel retaliates for that, we're going to not only shoot back at Israel, but we're going to shoot back at every other country in the region. We're going to shoot back at Azerbaijan. We're going to shoot back at Saudi Arabia, Jordan, everybody. And it'll be Israel's fault. We're going to pull out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That's the nuclear proliferation deal. The Biden administration has been trying to get Iran saying, we're not going to be a part of that anymore if the United States allows Israel to strike at us. For its part, the United States is saying to Israel, please don't do it. We'll slap a few more sanctions on Iran and call it good. As if the sanctions for decades have done any good. I did a podcast a while back on how good Iran has gotten at getting around the sanctions that are already on it. So those sanctions really, they don't help. At chuckholton.com, you can subscribe for free or become a supporter for $7 a month. That helps so I can stay on the road and keep doing what I do without having the sword of Damocles held by YouTube over my head, because if I say the wrong word, you could end up losing your entire account. So I have to be careful. I don't know about pulling out of the UN, because then you just make China and Russia and Iran more powerful. So I don't know about pulling out, but we fund 26% of the UN's budget. And so the UN would be pretty strapped if the United States said, you know what, as long as you guys are assisting these terrorist organizations, we're not going to give you any money. There's a whole lot of nations that are members of the UN that don't give them any money, that don't pay their dues, like Palestine, for one. And so if the United States decided to do that, we could put a real crimp in their jive. Okay? So thank you for hitting that like button. Subscribe and go to chuckholton.com. Over there, you'll find a lot of stuff. And look, I've been working on these. I'm going to get a book out before the election on how to survive the craziness that will probably happen around and after the election, no matter who wins. And this is based on obscure military manuals that I dug up that you can't find anymore. And they really apply very strongly to civilian life and to helping you be more prepared for shenanigans happening in your local area. I found these manuals years ago when I was in Afghanistan, and I thought at the time this would make a great prepper book. I'm adapting it to a civilian mindset, and you're going to love it. Get a preview by becoming a supporter over at chuckholton.com, and I highly recommend you do so. Okay, thank you for watching, and I pray that you'll have a great rest of your day. And I will be on again tomorrow from here in Jordan, and so stay tuned.